This is Pastor Steve speaking to you today from a remote location. I have to say that I was getting a little bored being at home. As far as I've walked is the distance on Murray Drive between my house and the church office. So I wanted to give you some thoughts about social isolation. I recognize how important it is for us to flatten the curve. We need to be vigilant in this. However, I also need to tell you that I hate the word isolation. The word isolation is synonymous with boredom for me. I can remember being a bad kid and my mom saying, "Stephen Brooke, go to your room." That's how I remember isolation, pain and misery. I mean, how many books can you read anyway? I've set a goal that I'm going to read all of the books that I have borrowed from friends during this time when we are alone. But it gets boring after a while to do nothing more than read. It's hard to focus even on the novel that is absolutely captivating. So what am I going to do? I turn on the television and I watch what's there. I love sports, so there's no baseball to watch, there's no hockey to watch, there's not even any basketball to watch. And folks, there's only so many times you can watch reruns of Australian rules football. It is tough for me to be alone. Why? Because I get lonely. I miss you. I miss my church family. I miss being around people. I think of my Wednesday morning Bible study group and my friends sitting around the table and having conversation before we study the Bible, and watching as the plate of sweets is passed around the table 3 times before anybody is brave enough to dive in and take the first one, and then how the rest of us will devour them with our coffee. I miss the interaction as I'm teaching, as people are listening to what I have to say and give their opinions. I really don't like being alone, as necessary as it is. During this time of isolation, some of you might also be lonely. You might be feeling the same things that I am feeling and can't wait till you're able to see people again. And yet we know that we're in this for the long haul, that it might last a while, that we will have to only go outside our homes for emergencies. What are we to do? The hymn writer wrote, and he said in Take Time to Be Holy, that you and I are to spend much time in secret. And we all know at a real spiritual level that talking to Jesus is important. In the Old Testament, God spoke to Joshua and he said, "Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." And that's one of the things that we can remember during the time of this isolation, that we're never alone. By our faith in Jesus, we are reminded that God walks with us, and that we can use this time for nurturing our spiritual life, for reading the scriptures, and for prayer. But also, one of the things that we can do is take time to care for each other. You know, there are electronic means of communicating with each other, even when we can't be in face-to-face contact. Nigel and I at the church office have been trying to figure out how we can minister digitally to each of you. And so we're going to have online services on Sundays. We're going to have Bible studies and prayer time using Zoom meetings. And we're going to do our best to keep in contact with people by texting, by Skype, by FaceTime. It's really important for us as a church not to close our doors during this time, but to find new ways of caring for people. And one of the things we can all do is use the telephone. And so I encourage you to phone your friends and to encourage them in this time of isolation to hang in there, because we're almost through. In fact, as I end this talk, I would think I'm just going to go home and call my mom and see how she's doing. This is Steve from a remote location. And before I sign off to you, I ask you the question, do you know where I'm at?